series. This is chapter 4. And we're going to be talking about, learning about multiplication. This is a multiplication table. You are going to have to remember it. Because guess what, guys? Stuff's going to get a lot harder in future grades. And the multiplication table, or multiplication in general, is one of the building blocks of math. Well, not exactly the building blocks, but, it's one of those things that you have to know if you want to learn anything that is more than primary school, actually. If you want to learn area, you have to learn multiplication. If you want to learn basically anything that you would like to use in life, you have to learn multiplication. So remember this darn thing. Remember it. Remember. Okay, I might have ruined the mood because I took too long to write that word. However, yeah, this is really important. So print off a copy of it, take a screenshot, find one somewhere online, copy one by hand. You have to remember it. Okay? Good. Now we're going to start. What is multiplication? So multiplication is basically repeated addition. Because nobody in this world wants to go like, 9 plus 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 9. I wonder what that is. Okay, 9 plus 9. Yeah, no. They just do 9. And how many 9s are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 times 9. And then they remember that it equals to 81. When there is an equal number in each group, you can find the total by using repeated addition or multiplication. For example, over here we have 5 groups of 4, which is equal to 20. 5 times 4 is equal to 20. 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 is equal to 20. Now, something that I would like to tell you is that the commutative property of addition also applies to multiplication, which means that 5 times 4 is equal to 4 times 5. Let's do some practice problems first. Find each total. Write an addition and a multiplication sentence. For example, over here we have 9 plus 9 is equal to 18. 2 groups of 9 is equal to 18. 2 times 9 is equal to 18. Now here we have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, times 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. So that'd be 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 equals to 24. How do I know this so quickly? Because I remembered my multiplication tables. Wait, this is 6 4s, right? Yep. 6 groups of 4 equals to 24. 6 times 4 equals to 24. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 3 groups of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that'd be 7 plus 7 plus 7 equals to 21. 3 groups of 7 equals to 21. 3 times 7, that's a 3, guys. I know it's a little bit deformed, but it's still a 3. 21. How do I do this so quickly? Well, I remembered my multiplication tables, and 7 plus 7 equals to 14. 14 plus 7 equals to 21. Anyhow, moving on to the last question of this section. Remember, guys, you can take a break whenever you want. There's 5 groups of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 groups of 5 equals to 25, by the way, guys. 5 times 5 equals to 25. 5 plus 5 equals to 10, plus 5, 15, plus 5, 20, plus 5, 25. Okay, guys. If you want to take a break, feel free to do so at any time. Anyhow, now we're going to move on to arrays and multiplication. So find 3 times 4 and or 4 times 3. 3 times 4, 3 groups of 4, looks, well, either of these can be 3 groups of 4 because the commutative property applies to multiplication. Now we're going to do some mix and match. And then we use the commutative property to write a different multiplication sentence. 7 times 8 equals to 56. You don't actually need to go around this and count which one has 56. You just look at the array. So over here there's 8 circles. Here there's 7 circles. Here there's 3 circles. Here there's 5 circles. Here there's, well, 6 circles. And here there's 9 circles. Well, which one has 7 circles and 8 circles? 7 by 8. This is why sometimes when you go to a hardware store or some other stores, there's some things that have measurements that are, say, 8 by 1 or 7 by 8, or photo frames 4 inches by 6 inches. Oh yes, and by the way, 1 by 8 by 12 is, well, I'm referring to wooden planks. Anyhow, so 7 times 8 is this one. 9 times 6, 9 and 6 is this one. And 3 and 5 is this one. To rewrite it, we just switch around the order. Five times 3 is equal to 3 times 5, 9 times 6 is equal to 6 times 9, 8 times 7 is equal to 7 times 8. We continue to the next section, which is about mental math. So, to multiply two numbers, you can skip count. You can. Say 5 times 2. Well, that's 2 groups of 5, so 5, 10. Equals to 10. 3 times 6. You could count by 3s, or you could count by 6s. 6, 12, 18. But, because the multiplication table is one of the base building blocks of multiplication, the best way, and honestly the way that you will be using most to multiply mentally, is to remember your multiplication tables, not to use a calculator. Remember your multiplication tables. For the love of whatever deity you happen to believe in, remember your multiplication tables. Anyhow, after you've remembered your multiplication tables, you get 7 times 3. You look at your multiplication table inside of your mind or on your paper if you haven't remembered it yet, because this is your first time remembering this is your first time trying to remember your multiplication table, and you probably haven't memorized it yet because this is probably at least your first time seeing or actually learning about multiplication. You probably haven't remembered it yet, so I'll cut you some slack. 7 times 3 is also equivalent to 3 times 7 because of the commutative property of multiplication. And 3 times 7 is equal to 21. It says so up here. 2 times 8 over here, or 8 times 2, commutative property, the order doesn't matter, 16. 4 times 5 is somewhere up there, and 4 times 5, for your information, please, guys, print out a multiplication table, is 20. 3 times 3, 3 groups of 3. If you want to skip count, it's 3, 6, 9. It's 9, but if you remembered your multiplication table, you could easily solve all of these. Very easily. Because honestly, I know the answers to all of them. Because I remembered my multiplication tables. That was a bit too much of an impassioned speech, wasn't it? Back on track. 2 times 5. Remember your multiplication tables. 10. 4 times 2. Again, remember your multiplication tables. Or 4 and 8. Count. 4 times 8. It's right there. First of all. Second of all, remember your multiplication tables. I'm going to keep saying this until you remember, or until we finish talking about multiplication. 7 times 2 is there, 14. Here's the thing. You can choose not to remember your multiplication tables. But that is not good, because you're going to run into a lot of troubles in your later life. Because guess what? Sometimes you're not allowed calculators. You sometimes just aren't allowed calculators. Calculators are not the solution to everything. Sometimes you do need calculators, like for trigonometry when you were in grade 10 or sometime in high school. But for stuff like this, don't use your calculator. I had one teacher come into my class sometime in it was sometime in middle school. But she came into our class. I forgot where we were at the time. We might have been in the library, I'm not sure. But she went up to our teacher and she started literally just not really complaining, but she sat down and she was like, I just saw a kid, type 4 times 2 into his calculator. Was it his or her? I'm not sure. And then she was just there, sitting there. She was so disappointed. Yeah. Don't rely on calculators for multiplication tables or for stuff that you can find on your multiplication table. Remember your multiplication table for the sake of yourself, your teacher's sanity, your time, your anything else, your future, because a lot of the STEM fields require math. Just remember your multiplication tables. Am I done preaching about multiplication tables? No. You could never preach too much about multiplication tables. Anyhow, if you want to take a break and go and try to remember your multiplication table, go straight on ahead. Multiply by 4. So yeah, these are some visual models to help you, but this is a summary of the part of the multiplication table that has 4 in it. Yeah. So 4 times 8 equals to, well, 4 times 8 is right here, 32. You can also choose to count all of these. These are sons. So you could choose to count, but why? Anyhow, 4 times 3 is right here, 12. 4 times 6 is here, 24. Multiply. 4 times 1, 4. There is a general rule in multiplying things by 1, but right now we're just going to focus on 4. 2 times 4 and 4 times 2, commutative property. They are the same thing, so 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times 4 is here, 16. 5 times 4 is 20. 4 times 7 is 28. And 4 times 9 is 36. So yeah, multiplication is really just remembering your times tables. Anyhow, moving on to our problem-solving strategy. Extra or missing information. Here's the thing. If you're missing information, you can't solve the problem. If there's extra information though, then, well, you don't need to read that, technically. Alexander has a violin lesson at 6 p.m. I remember when I had music lessons. That lasts for 45 minutes. Okay, he has another calligraphy class. I knew somebody that was in calligraphy class. Calligraphy is basically how to write things prettily. How to write things in a pretty way. I personally never took a calligraphy class. I knew somebody that did though. They had really good handwriting. That starts 10 minutes after. Calligraphy class ends at 8:10 p.m. Alexander then eats dinner for 30 minutes. How long is calligraphy class? Well, understand. What do you know and what do you need to find out? Is, well, what we get. We know when his violin lesson starts and how long his violin lesson lasts. We also know when his calligraphy class starts. 10 minutes after his violin class ends. And we also know when his calligraphy class ends. We also know how long he eats dinner for, but how long is calligraphy class is what we need to find out. Here's the thing. What information do we need? Well, to find out how long calligraphy class is, we know, well, we need to know when it starts and ends. We know when it ends. We technically do know when it starts, at least in relation to the violin lesson. But we don't actually need the Alexander then eats dinner for 30 minutes. So this is the unnecessary information. We have extra information here. Now we are going to carry out our plan. So the violin lesson starts at 6 p.m. I'll just put 6 right now. It lasts for 45 minutes. So it ends at 6:45. Calligraphy class then starts 10 minutes after. That's 6:55. And we know that calligraphy class ends at 8:10. Now, how long is it from 6:55 to 8:10? Well, if we put in our knowledge about time, we get that it is 75 minutes, or an hour and 15 minutes. Now we check our answer. Make sure that we use the correct information. Well, we managed to solve the question, so usually when you solve the question, you probably used the correct information. At least if you are sure that you solved the question. Our question is, how long is calligraphy class? We got the answer 75 minutes. Calligraphy class ends at 8:10. If we work backwards, then we get that calligraphy class starts at 6:55. And that violin class ends at 6:45. Violin class lasts for 45 minutes, so then we get that violin class starts at 6 p.m. This is consistent, or well, it matches with the information that we are given. Therefore, we are correct. Moving on, back to multiplication. Multiplying by 5. The best way to multiply by 5, again, is to remember your multiplication tables. Am I ever going to stop preaching about multiplication tables? Probably not. You can skip count. You can. It's just like saying you can drink spoiled milk. It's just not a good idea. First of all, spoiled milk tastes really bad. Don't do that. Please don't. 8 times 5. You can skip count by 5, or you can skip count by 8, or you could just look at your multiplication table or remember it and realize that it's equal to 40. 8 times 5 and 5 times 8, commutative property, they're the same. 5 times 2 is equal to 10 because multiplication tables. And 5, 10. Anyhow, multiply. 3 times 5, 15. 5, 10, 15. 4 times 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. Or you could just, well, because in case you haven't noticed, I mean, once you get into double-digit multiplication, you have to use vertical form, and when you are using vertical form, you have to know your basics. In multiplication, the basics is your multiplication table, or times table. 5 times 5, 25. 5 times 6, 30. 5 times 7, 35. 9 times 5, 45. We move on to multiplying by 10. Here's the thing. When you multiply by 10, this is a trick. You multiply the stuff that isn't 0, and then you add 0. 1 times 6, 6, and then you add 0. 1 times 9, 9, you add 0. 1 times 2, 2, you add 0. But, well, because it's just multiplying by 10, you take the number, say 10 times 4, you take 4, you add 0. 10 times 7, you take 7, you add 0. 10 times 1, you take 1, you add 0. 10 times 8, you take 8, you add 0. 10 times 3, you take 3, you add 0. 10 times 5, you take 5, you add 0. If it was a multiple of 10, say 20 times 5, then it'd be 2 times 5, which is 10, and then you add 0 and you get 100. 20 times 5 is, in fact, 100. Now, we're on to another problem-solving investigation. Continuing with missing or extra information. Frank picked 36 tomatoes for a family dinner. Lucy bought 24 fish fillets at the store. There will be 18 family members having dinner. How many fish fillets are left if each family member eats one? Okay, this reminds me of a story. So, I was doing this biology thing. Biology is the science of living things. And we ended up having to dissect a fish. Somebody finished early, and they decided, you know what, I'm going to fillet my fish with a scalpel. It was a very interesting sight to see. We didn't eat it, though, because the dissection boards aren't the cleanest place on earth, and it's, let's just say, don't eat anything off of a dissection board, and leave it there. Back on track, though. Be sure you understand the problem, step 1. What do we know? We know how many tomatoes Frank picked. We know how many fish fillets Lucy bought. We know how many family members are having dinner. And we know that each family member eats one. What do we need to find out? How many fish fillets are left? So our plan is probably subtraction, because it says how many of something are left. And is there any missing or unneeded information? There isn't actually any information missing. But we don't actually need to know the amount of tomatoes Frank picked. But hey, since each family member eats one fish fillet, then you don't have to do any multiplication. Because, well, you're going to learn this in the next section. So there's 18 family members. And if everybody eats one, then that's 18 fish fillets. There's a total of 24 fish fillets. And 24 minus 18 is the amount of fish fillets left, which is 4 minus 8 doesn't work, so you regroup, and then you get 14 minus 8, which is 6. 2 had 1 regrouped out of it, so 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0, so you don't really need to write it down. You get 6 fish fillets are left. Usually, you would write remain, but since people in grade 3 don't really talk like that, well, you guys usually won't really talk like that, you use are left. Is the solution reasonable? Reread the problem. How can we check our answer? Is the solution reasonable? I mean, it's not unreasonable. If you do a little bit of rounding, though, both of these would round to 20, which would be a bit of a problem. Reread the problem. We don't actually need the bit about Frank, so we're going to cut that out. Lucy bought 24 fish fillets at the store. There will be 18 family members having dinner. How many fish fillets are left if each family member eats 1? We got our numbers correct. How can we check our answer? 18 plus 6 is indeed 24. Therefore, our answer is correct. Now we move on. Multiplication by 0 and 1. So there's 2 properties of multiplication. Well, there's more, but like right now we're only talking about these 2. The identity property of multiplication. Remember the identity property of addition, it's anything plus 0 equals to that thing. Well, it's different in this one. The identity property of multiplication is the product of a non-zero number and 1 is the number itself. Say you have 1 box of 6 donuts. I know that if you decide to go with, I think it's British spelling, it would be spelled differently. It would be spelled donuts, like dough, but this is the spelling that we're going to use right now. It doesn't really matter right now because we're talking about just the number, not the spelling. So if you have 1 box of 6 donuts, you still have 6 donuts. 1 times 6 is equal to 6. If you have 1 box of 8 churros, you're still going to have 8 churros. If you have 1 package of 3 tennis balls, at least from where I'm from, you usually buy tennis balls in 3 packs. Unless they're cheap, not too quality tennis balls, but anyhow, if you have 1 pack of 3 tennis balls, you still have 3 tennis balls. That's the logic behind it. The 0 property of multiplication, though, is the product of a number and 0 is 0. Any number, doesn't matter. If you have 0 boxes of 6 donuts, then you have 0 donuts. If you have 0 boxes, well no, yeah, 0 boxes of 12 soda cans, you have 0 soda cans. If you have 0 packets of cookies, then you have no cookies. That's just how it works. So we're going to do a few questions. 1 times 8. The identity property dictates that 1 times anything equals to that thing. So 1 times 8 equals to 8. 4 times 1. Again, identity property. 4 times 1 will equal to 4. 0 times 6. The 0 property. If you have 0 boxes of 6 donuts, it's still 0 donuts. 0 times 3. If you have 0 packs of 3 tennis balls, you have 0 tennis balls. 0 property. 0 times 1. If you just have none of one thing, well, you're going to have nothing. Well, you're going to have none of that thing. So 0 times 1 is 0. Again, remember that the identity property of multiplication says any non-zero number times 1. Which means that, well, if it's 0, then if there's a 0 in it, then it's going to be following the 0 property. We move on to 0 times 15. I know that you haven't learned multiplication in 15 yet, but 0 times anything equals to 0. 8 times 0, 0. 1 times 17. I also know that you haven't learned multiplication with 17 yet. But 1 times anything equals to that thing. If you have one box with 17 carrot sticks, you're going to have 17 carrot sticks. 1 times 17 equals to 17. 3 times 1 equals to 3. Alright guys, that's it for this chapter. See you next chapter. And I hope that by next chapter, you will have at least some of your multiplication table memorized. Good luck.